Hey everyone, I got an exciting show for you. One of the things that I hear from a lot of investors is, I need to find a lender who kind of understands investors. So after searching for a little while, actually, this guest actually reached out to me first, which I was really excited about, and talk with them, and it's going to be a good fit. So I have with me today Jerry Padilla. How you doing this morning, Jerry?
Good. How you doing, Mike? Thank you for bringing me on, and I'm really excited to be able to have a little chat with you today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And this is an exciting topic, right? Lending is, frankly, for the first time in years, friendly for investors, right? I've been doing this for a long time where it went from super easy, frankly, bad. It was so easy, it was bad, right? From '03 to '08. Then it got, then it was like ice cold. I couldn't even walk by a bank without alarms going off. And now it is starting to thaw and actually thaw in legitimate and structured ways. So much so that I just refied, I don't know, 6 or 8 properties that had, hard money loans on them still because no bank would talk to me. So I'm excited by this conversation because I think some investors, such as myself, um, kind of wrote off institutional lending because they told us no for 5 years. And then more importantly, I really want to talk about new investors because there are some extremely exciting things going on around the BRRRR method that we'll get to, which is sort of buy, fix, repair, rent, and then refi. So we'll talk about that too. But before we do that, Jerry, we always start with, you're an investor first, right? So let's talk about what you have and kind of that story about being a real estate investor before we get into the lending.
So I was actually in the lending industry before the crash, and because the crash had kind of forced me to get out of it for a little bit. And so my wife and I decided that I get a stable job, and in the midst of getting a stable job, we actually started doing investing ourselves. So we bought a couple properties. We did flip one, and then gave us the ability to buy another one cash, and then gave us the ability to purchase our duplex as a primary residence, and to be able to running those simultaneously, and putting ourselves in a position where we were able to renovate both properties. So when I got back into the industry, and back in the mortgage industry, back in 2013, I felt that I was going to focus on something that I had a passion for, just because I enjoyed doing it. I actually like working on the houses and doing the renovations myself. But it did get to a point where I couldn't do it anymore, because I was focusing on the financing side of the business now, and the time had to be divided between the two. So I decided I was going to start hiring out. But prior to being in the mortgage industry, back in the mortgage industry, I would do all my work myself. So when I got back into the industry, that's all I did is I learned and focused and understood the investor financing. A lot of times people don't want to give the information because they don't know it. So they'll tell you that no, it's not capable of being done, or you're doing it wrong, just because even though it's a conventional product, it's its own product in itself.
Right.
So people don't really get that it's a different world. So I've done my research to make sure that I'm always keeping an eye on what's changing in the market, what's happening, how it impacts investors, and doing what I can to provide as much education as possible.
That's great. And, having a, investor focused loan officer who has experience in kind of the 1 to 4 family, right? We'll call residential financing, who's actually done a flip, right? Bought a property rundown, done the repairs, flipped it, then used the cash, right? That I would call that building chunk money, right? Which is what people call it. And then using that chunk money to buy a duplex. And that's the kind of stuff that, I don't hear a lot from, people that I talk on the lending side or the mortgage broker side. So that's exciting. I'm glad again you reached out because a lot of the people watching this show are seeking a loan officer. So let me just ask the big question, just so everybody can get it out of the way first. Do you loan in all 50 states, or are you like focused on, I don't know, Texas or New York?
So my company does loan in all 50 states. Our branch is not in all 50 states, but I haven't yet to run into a situation where I need to get licensed in those areas. So as far as now, I can lend in every state that I've talked to investors at, but the company is actually willing to provide licensing to our branch if needed. So So the answer is yes.
Yeah. So that's a long answer to yes, people. This is someone who's willing to work with you in all 50 states, uh, which should be very exciting and cause you to stay on board and watch the rest of this show. So let's get into that a little bit. You talk about, sort of researching product, right? Which is which is, I don't know, mortgage speak for loan options. So let's break that down. I know you have a specific passion. I know you write on Bigger Pockets around the BRRRR method. So why don't we just talk about what it is first, just so we don't assume everybody knows, and then let's talk about some of the loan products. Maybe when to go cash, when to get a loan. Why don't you talk about the BRRRR method from your experience first, and then we'll get into the product.
So the BRRRR method is definitely a great way to jump into the industry. When you have some cash and some capital to work with initially, it puts you in a position. So depending on how the structure of the purchase is will determine on when you purchase with financing or when you purchase with cash and then refinance. So depending on what I like to tell people is, if you're buying this property at a retail level, then you're not going to buy cash. You're going to do with refinancing from the get-go. But if you're buying it in the wholesale market, you're going to buy cash, and then you're going to try to recoup as much of your cost from that transaction with the delayed financing option. So when I'm discussing these avenues with investors, I want to make sure that they understand, like, if they are getting a wholesale deal and they're getting a really good deal where they have built in 30% equity into it or 25% equity into it, that they're including their renovation costs into that HUD. So because delayed financing only looks at the initial cost plus closing costs investment. So whatever the appraised value is, whatever you paid for it is the max that you can get out of it. So it puts us in a position where if we include those renovation costs at the time of closing, then we don't have to wait 6 months to be able to do a cash out refinance and recoup as much as possible.
All right. So let's put some numbers behind this, because this should be exciting to everyone, and I want to make sure we sort of spoon feed it, because I don't want to assume that I'm hearing it one way. So you got a piece of paper just so we stay on board?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the deal, right? So let's just say after repair value of something is 200 grand. Okay. Let's say we found a wholesale deal for whatever reason. We just got to put numbers down of 75 grand. Right. Okay. Required cash, same deal, right? Got to close in 10 days, that includes the assignment fee, right? Maybe they got it for 60 and we're paying the wholesaler 15 grand. So I'm out of pocket 75. Let's assume, license contractor, permits, all that stuff, it's 50 grand. Let's assume it's a 90-day process. Every 30 days we need, I don't know, whatever that is, 15 grand, or let's say it's 60 grand in repairs, just so it's easier. Every 30 days for 90 days, we need 20 grand for repairs. Just trying to make it as easy as possible. So plenty of room, assuming, again, these numbers are real, right? Which you can verify and blah, blah, blah. But so walk me through what you would suggest, right? So, let's just say this. What I'm used to doing, and again, I realize I'm in a position with more capital and all of that, there may be some. I would come in, stroke this check for 75 grand, be happy as a clam. I would probably go spend the 60 grand myself to do all the repairs. I would stick a tenant in, and then I would go back to, someone like yourself and say, okay, basically give me all my money back, right? Because there's you could easily do a 70% loan to value pretty easily, almost 60%. But what I think you just said is, hey, if you work with me, meaning you might be able to help me do that refi or that purchase with a loan. Did I hear that right, or am I just smoking?
Correct? So,
oh wow.
So let's go over that scenario. So saying what you're talking about. So if the project took you 90 days to do it, so it's a 3-month period to do the project, and then you want to come back and get your costs back from it. So in that particular scenario where you pay $75,000 up front and then you put the $60,000 out of your pocket throughout the process, in order for you to recoup that $135,000, you'd have to close on the 6-month mark. So you'd have to wait another 3 months before you close to recoup that cost.
Yep.
But so let's flip the coin on that. So if we were to work with the title company, so the title company is the one that helps up set up the escrow account. So you're paying the $75,000, which includes your assignment fee, whatever recording costs that is due to get the transaction, and then they put a $60,000 escrow, renovation escrow account onto that. So the title company holds the money, which you as the investor have control of it. So then you're doing the disbursements as needed. So like you said, 10,000 every couple of weeks or however you guys make that determination.
Okay.
So now your HUD shows $135,000. If that property is worth 200, that's 67% LTV.
Yep.
So if this is a single family, as an example, then you would be fine because you go up to 75% of the appraised value.
Yep.
But not to exceed your initial investment. So now our initial investment is 135, not 75.
Yep.
So the underwriter and Fannie Mae, both Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, are able to recognize that that's your all-in cost when you initially bought it.
Okay. So you got me excited. Hopefully other people are excited. So what I think you're saying is I can avoid the 6-month clock, which is good because in my model, what I outlined, I have a 30-day or I have a 90-day extra hold period before I can do anything. Totally agree, right? You got that 6-month mark. Got it. And I'm used to that, right? I build that in. Then what you're saying is, Fannie Freddie is willing to look at this deal up front. So I save on having a second closing, right? Which, a couple of grand, right? But all money's money, right? So that's interesting. The one thing I haven't heard just yet is time, right? All right. In this opportunity, right, the wholesaler said this or that, and I got to close in 10 days, which is standard. Or, I don't know if it's standard, but I'm used to it. What would it take for, if I brought you this loan on, I don't know, what is today? February 17th? How soon could you close this, assuming all the numbers check out and all that, everything is, how long was it take?
So this method actually only works when you're doing cash initial investment, just because what delayed financing is allow you to recoup what you have invested into the transaction. So we're not gonna give you the purchase price plus the renovation cost if you did it as a purchase.
Okay, so let's break that down. So let's just break it down like I was bringing you this deal today. And, oh, by the way, I have the money, so I don't need the loan. But so I bring this to you, you check me out, credit, blah, blah, blah. I'm a solid borrower. Do I close in 10 days, stroke the check, own the property? Am I then doing repairs out of how does the delayed financing work? I guess I'm missing that piece.
So you come to me and say, hey, all right, Jerry, I got this deal. Here's the scenario. Here's everything around the deal. So I'm going to tell you, go ahead and go purchase the property cash. Make sure that the title company escrows the renovation. So you're stroking a check for $135,000.
Yep.
And then the day that you get that signed HUD is the day that we could start the process. So we don't need to wait any timelines to start the process. The only thing in this scenario that we have to wait on is we got to wait for the appraisal, just because we want the appraisal done when the renovations are completed. So we could get all the paperwork out of the way and get all that taken care of and eliminate the need for the timing of underwriting process and get that piece of the puzzle done. And then once the property is ready, we send out the appraiser. And then from there, once we get the appraisal back, we'll be able to close shortly after that.
That's pretty cool. So I just want to make sure I heard it right. So, in this example, right, I think I talked about a 90-day window. But still, I still have to stroke that first check for 135 because you want to see the 60 grand escrowed. And then I take disbursements or draws or whatever you want to call it from that. Okay, so that's a little higher because in my original model, I would be doing that, when the GC sent me his bill or whatever, right? So that's a little different, but not horrible. And then we get all the paperwork done up front. You build a file on me, so you do that once, got it. And then we do need to wait in this example for 90 days because you want to go in and appraise it after it's all done.
Correct, because I want to give you the after improved value.
Of course. Okay. All right. And then, let's just say it all works out. 90 days, guy comes in, says, yep, worth 200. How soon after that 200 number you get, do we go back to escrow, or how does that work?
So how that works is, okay, so say we actually were proactive and got everything through the process initially, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we're just waiting for the appraisal to come back to get clear to close.
Mm-hmm.
So once the appraisal gets reviewed, which is usually about a 24 to 48-hour time frame, that done, and then we can get the closing disclosure out there, because in a conventional world, we have to have that closing disclosure for you to give you that 3-day waiting period.
Totally get it.
So if all the stars align, then it would be a week after the appraisal came back in to be able to close on the transaction.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. So, you know, as a borrower who wants to do the BRRRR method, you know, I could put capital in, you know, the one difference is you're putting capital in an escrow account that you would normally disperse over, you know, every 30 days in our example, which is not bad. And then what you're doing is you're getting your capital back. In this example, you're getting 100% of your capital back by day 100, day 105, you know, something like that, right? So pretty cool.
Yeah, so the only thing that you end up paying at the end in this particular scenario is you pay for just the closing costs and the refinance.
Yeah, it's a couple of grand, right? Yeah.
So you're only into it for closing costs, and then you've recouped 100% of your investment. So it still works if, say, say our loan amount's only able to be $125,000. That's still better than having to wait
for sure
money to recoup that cost. So it's definitely a method that works as long as all the numbers are accurately done. So doing the due diligence up front will determine on when we need to do this method. Now, if you come back to me and say, all right, Jerry, I'm going to buy this property and I'm going to put 60 grand into it, and you're a brand new investor, but it's only going to be worth about 150, then I would take a look at a different product that may actually help you to get this all in the financing world, because I do have some renovation products, but it's limited for the first forced transaction of an individual. So that's something that is a different element itself, but it is a possibility for a brand new investor. So that product is available for new investors, but if you're an experienced investor, more than likely you already have more than four finance properties.
A long time ago.
So that works for the brand new guy.
That's really cool. So I guess one of the things that sort of goes unsaid here is you need to start, and you've said it, I think on air, but certainly when we were just talking before we hit the record button, you're about the relationships. And you know, people watching this, they need to, you know, reach out to you, talk about what they're doing, getting their deals, because again, you have options, right? You have this story that I went through, you have this new product, this new investor story. So people need to reach out and talk to you. So why don't we just give it to them now? If somebody wanted to talk to you about what they're doing, how would they get a hold of you? What's your phone number?
Best way to reach me is my cell phone, which is area code 585-204-6923. Best point of contact. But you also can email me at jerry.padilla, and that is Padilla at primelending.com.
Yeah, and we'll do that again at the end. I just wanted to get it out of the way, because some people don't watch all the videos, so I want to make sure, or at least the full length of the video, so I want to make sure we get that out. So this is pretty exciting stuff. So again, just to use the example, right? Remember, if you don't remember, it was 200 grand after repair. We bought it for 75. We had 60 in repair, and it took us 90 days. What I heard Jerry say is, you know, which was pretty exciting, is, you know, most projects don't take 90 days, right? They're like a 45 day if you're kind of running and you take it over vacant. So you could, in theory, recycle your capital 4 or 5 times in this model, where in the old model, you're sort of tapped out at 6 months, right? You just have that before you get your capital back. So this is pretty exciting stuff. And then in addition, do you really care where whatever it was, the 135 came from? And what I mean by that is some of the people I talk to use private money, right? So they would get a private money loan, say they're paying 12% or 10% or whatever it is. Let's say they borrow the full, 135, close with that, you know, so they're escrowing the 60 grand in our example, run the product, and then they want to refi and pay it off. Do you care where the 135 came from?
So we do care where the 135 comes from. So when it's not their own capital, we just ask the source of the funds.
Yep.
In this particular case, there would be a check cut out directly to the private money lender. So
of course, they're on note mortgage. Yeah, of course.
So they would get a check cut out. Like in that scenario, if we have a balance of 135, then the client would actually be bringing their closing costs to the table, so that the private money lender gets their 135.
Yeah, but it doesn't affect the loan amounts or ARV or yeah, because if you're doing this right, people, and you better be doing it right. When you do the first purchase, right, you're going through escrow, you're recording a note, you're recording a deed, you have insurance with the private money investor named. You got to protect everybody in this.
Correct.
But what you're saying is at day 105 in our example, that private money investor gets paid back, right? They've had 3 months of making 12% or whatever it is. Then the borrower, so the private money person's paid off. They're happy. They got 12% for 3 months. Kudos to them. Then the owner of the property's into a property for $2 or $3 grand, meaning closing costs on the second refi. They're now in on the deed, right? Or yeah, okay. I like that. That's pretty cool. Okay.
And then so a couple of just little tidbits just to make sure that everybody's aware of is there is reserve requirements with conventional financing.
Of course.
So we make sure that there's extra money set aside. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be checking savings accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Those could be 401ks, life insurance with cash value, IRAs, stock accounts, things of those natures to allow for the reserve requirements.
Yep.
And the other thing that I just want to mention, just so that people are aware of, is this all has to be in their personal name.
Yep. Okay.
So when you're doing this, you want to do the transaction in your personal name initially so that there is no confusion with ownership of title and anything of that nature. Because when you're doing it in an LLC, that could confuse things and cause things to be a little bit more convoluted. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't necessarily break the deal, but it does actually cause a little bit more paperwork, and especially if it's in a situation where you have two partners together mm-hmm. buying this property and they put in the LLC. Well, then in that scenario, they both have to be on the loan. Mm-hmm. So now they just eliminated a loan from each other because it's 10 loans per individual, not 10 loans total. So, right. So if they're a partner, they could get 20 conventional loans as long as they do it correctly.
Wow, very cool. Okay, all right. So this is fun, man. This is I think this is going to turn on the light bulb for lots of folks. So what other loan options are there? Because you've already blown my mind away. I didn't know this existed. So congrats. That doesn't happen very often. What else is out there?
I mean, there's all your standard products where if you're coming in and wanting to purchase property, say single family residence, you could go as low as 15% down on a single family residence. I typically don't suggest that just because one, you're going a higher rate, two, you're getting mortgage insurance. So I always recommend going a minimum of 20%, if possible, go 25% because you get the best exposure for rate opportunities.
Yep.
Like I said earlier, there is a couple of options for renovation loans, but again, those are for the brand new investor that doesn't have any loans in their name, and they're looking to get started into it. So there is a couple opportunities there. Then you have your standard cash out where you have a couple of investors who just hold these properties for years and they just have kept them. Now they want to go ahead and cash those out.
So, okay. So now you're speaking my language because I happen to be one of those people. So let's just say I owned, I don't know, let's say 10 properties just to keep the math simple. Free and clear. Let's just say, for example, they're all worth 150K. So that's 1.5, right? If I'm doing my math right. What do we do? Could we do one commercial loan over all 10, or would I have to do 10 loans? Or talk to me about options I would have in this example.
So in this example, you would have to do 10 loans because I'm still a conventional lender, so I still abide by Fannie and Freddie rules.
Okay.
There would be 10 individual loans, and then I'm assuming these are single families, so 75% of the appraised value is what you would be able to get per loan. And it's something that I don't have a problem doing all at once either. That's another thing that I've heard in the past is that my previous loan officer told me I only could do one at a time, or he said I can only do two at a time. In my career, I've closed a 8-package, 6-package, multiple 3-packages, multiple 5 packages throughout my career as an loan officer. Mm-hmm. So they are time consuming, but
I bet they would be.
Once you get a system rolling, then it's easy to do. And just it allows to that. I mean, because there's some investors that just want to knock out their 10 loans with.
Yeah, I don't want to stretch this out over freaking 10 months, man. I want to get it all done once. That's a freaking lot of paperwork, man.
Yeah. So if it takes us 60 to 75 days to do all 10, that's better than a
Oh,
year.
for sure.
so,
So
so I
is there
think
any limits? Let's say I had, I don't know, let's say, I mean, shoot, how many residential loans do I have? I don't know. Let's say I already had 10. Am I already capped out? I'm done?
so you're capped out with the conventional world, and I'm constantly looking for different opportunities with portfolio lenders out there that are wanting to go onto that realm. And I found one that I could go an additional 5 more, and then there's a possibility of another lender then having discussions with to determine
Okay.
if they're wanting to do 5 more in that. So there is alternative methods. The only drawback to those alternative methods is that their rates are not going to be conventional.
Yeah, of course. That's fine. So I'm just curious, just since we're talking, what are rates today? I think they've dropped recently, at least a little bit. What are rates?
So what I've been averaging out for the last week, anywhere from 5.375 to 5.875 range.
So sub 6.
Yeah. So depending on the range of the customer, situation, credit scores, things of that nature.
Yeah, of course, of course. Man, very, very cool. So, yeah, I would definitely, as I said in the open, lending is becoming friendly again, right? It may not be easy, but it's certainly friendly, right? It was painful, man, for like 5 years. It was like, God, don't even talk to me. So this is very cool. I'm glad you reached out. Anything else we should talk about as far as lending?
I don't know if it was you or me, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah, you froze for a little bit. That's okay. Anything else we should talk about with lending?
um, not that I could think of.
Okay. All right. Why don't we see if we can leave your phone number one more time?
That I'm not afraid to 504-6923.
All right, Jerry. Thank you very much for this. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to lots of people reaching out to you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care.